Okay, so now let's cover the operating system, or the OS. Like I said before, this one manages the computer hardware and software resources, and it provides services for our programs. The OS is the component of the system software that the application usually requires so that it can function properly. So now, what is a computer program? So this is a definition that I usually like to use. Is a set of instructions like we see here on the screen. A program is a set of step-by-step instructions. It has a starting point and then it starts executing, and these instructions are written in the language understood by the computer system or the device. So usually programs are in binary format, composed of binary zeros and ones. How do we write programs? We often use programming languages to write them. Thank God we don't have to deal with zeros and ones like in the 1940s, 50s. Okay, so as a summary of this quick introduction, we discussed that we have the CPU that has registers and cache. The CPU is the processing unit that has the ALU and the control unit. See how registers are attached to the CPU? That means they're the fastest kind of memory because they're very close. And then after that comes the cache, and there's multiple levels. You can read up on that. And then there's the main memory, and we mentioned the physical and virtual memory addressing. After that, we look at the secondary storages like the drives, the hard drives, the SSDs, etc. So this is kind of a diagram of how the computer system is tied together, and some peripheral devices in here, keyboard, mouse, etc. Another summary to recap is that we discussed both the hardware and software components of the computer system. We discussed the operating system and the programs. So just to leave you with this as a takeaway from this whole lecture is that our programs are usually stored on a disk or a flash, right, on a persistent storage. Then they need the RAM, the temporary storage, so that they can store their data, they can execute instructions. The CPU is the brains of the computer. It knows that you need to load a program from disk, so it loads it from disk for you into RAM, and it allows this program to communicate with the RAM and the disk and execute some instructions. This is kind of the whole idea of this section, is just to understand the relation between these three. Once you understand the CPU, the RAM, and the disk relationship with our programs, the machine code, and the operating system, then we should be ready to move on to the next lecture. Alright, so in the next lecture, we're gonna get a closer look at programming languages. What kind of programming languages are used? Where does C fit in between programming languages in general? So that's it for this lecture, and see you in the next lecture.